Hi everyone, can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Yeah, I'm very popular for having a very low voice. Maybe because I didn't work in academia at any point, I should try. Hi, thanks all for staying so patient till the last day afternoon. I'm Radhika. I'm currently working at ARIA, which is Advanced Research and Invention Agency. I'll do a little bit of introduction about those of you who don't know about ARIA later. But I took a slightly different approach to think about when I was asked to do a presentation as to what in my career would be interesting for the audience here. And especially I was told this is, the focus is more for postdoctoral researchers and early career researchers. I'm no good at talking the technical stuff about robotics when compared to everyone else, the academics and researchers here. So I thought maybe I'll share the journey of the squiggly journey, like Sigdam also shared, and what is it at every stage that I learned and what is useful for you. So I structured my presentation in a way that at every stage of my journey, career journey, what are the learnings for me, which I can share with you. You can take whatever you wish suits you. What are the options I was presented towards the end of that journey? And what is the, and I'm a strong advocate of giving away something in return to what you're getting back to the society. So what are the voluntary roles that I picked up at different stages of my career, and how did that help in progressing my career and building my network? And towards the end of every stage of my career, I'll share a little bit of what I wish I knew before I started that leg of my journey. So prior to entering the world of robotics, which I was never planning to, again, I'll share why that was. So university and early career, I did an undergrad in, or a Bachelor of Engineering in electronics. Somehow I didn't pick up electronics, and I still don't know why. I'm a very bad engineer is what I keep saying sometimes. And then I moved on. I did my master's in computer science. Again, there was a point of reflection there. So being back in India, all my education till my master's was in India, highly competitive. So we were talking yesterday at our table that, like, if you have to get anything from your parents, you have to work hard and get good grades. That's the only way. So in my master's, I got a very good score, got the scholarship to go into a very reputed institution, was offered computer science and AI. So this was back in 2000, 2001. And that is the very first university in India that was offering AI as a course in India at that point. But I chose computer science. And that is, I never knew at that point that AI is going to make big waves later. So yeah, that is the point of reflection. And like many others, like many of my friends and my batchmates, I just picked up a graduate engineering role, went into a big corporate, started learning things as to how corporates work. That was the first exposure to big clients like Ericsson, GE, and a few others. I was working in both development as well as support. And then again, what I realized there is all throughout my academics, I focused more on getting good grades, I used to fight for even 1 mark, go back to the lecturer. So then I realized what's the reflection point is the soft skills that we learn about how to interact with people, how to network. Those are the things that missed. So which I started picking up. So that was about the corporate journey. So I was there for about 4 or 5 years, I think, in the corporate world. Started getting up in the career. And then it was family time again. So had 2 kids. I stayed back home with them for 4 years, I think. Enjoyed that time, cherished a lot. And I was just looking at Helen bringing her daughter, and my daughter is here today, starting her university, which I never expected will happen at that point. So during the maternity break, we moved as a family to UK just for 1 year, and we are still here. So that was the time when we were planning to go back. So end of the maternity, there were options for me as to whether I need to pursue something here, staying in UK. If that is the case, if I go back to full-time work, how will we manage 2 young kids because we don't have any support from family? Or do I go back to my same job from before, which was again in the corporate world, or do I pursue research? So a little bit of reflection, again, bringing about the voluntary exposure that I got here is I was working in a charity shop, which was a recycling charity shop. That was the first experience sitting at a reception desk and dealing with people, especially people coming from different countries, speaking different languages, trying to understand what they were asking and how do I serve them. So that's the first exposure I had there, and they were the ones who referred me to the university that I was applying for. So any single thing that you do wouldn't go waste. So always that's the message I like to share. So eventually, out of all the options that I had there, I wanted to pick up research. But what I didn't know then is what was I passionate about in the research? What do I want to do? I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So that's when the career in robotics element of it happened surprisingly, even for me. So I started applying for PhD opportunities at different universities within UK. I wasn't sure what to apply for because I had an exposure to some of the elective courses of AI during my master's. I just thought, okay, maybe I'll try applying for AI. And then I started applying, ended up getting a PhD opportunity in healthcare robotics, which I was surprised about as well. And the first thing I negotiated there was, the thesis was on developing machine learning algorithms in order to train a haptic robot. So the haptic robot was helping people with any kind of upper limb impairments following either a stroke or a sports injury or any other neurological conditions. Because there is lack of physiotherapists within UK, developing machines that can help ease off some load.
Did they serve coffee?
Yeah, they
Are they bringing new coffee?
People are desperate about coffee.
Because we are. Where is Farzana?
Okay, I'll continue until we get another coffee call. Yeah, so I was designing machine learning algorithms which can read the parameters from the robot, from the haptic robot that the user or was exercising with. And based on how they are performing, the algorithm should the training for the next session or during that session on the go to make it difficult or make it easy. On some days they might be more motivated to do it, on some days they may be less motivated. So I created a game so that it's interesting. And I saw some of the other presentations which were also doing something similar or even progressed beyond that. So it was heartening to see that the research is progressing in that space. So that was my PhD research, worked with several haptic-based robots during my PhD, and obviously published in different conferences, in journals. That's how I built my network in the space of healthcare robotics mainly. So again, towards the end of PhD, during the PhD, kids were very young. They just started going back to school. Husband was working in a different location, so he was away during the weekdays. So somehow I managed working 9 till 3 term time and still finished my PhD within 3.5 years, very focused on just finishing that. But it was time then to go back and stay together as a family. So that was the personal decision that we had to make. So whether to pursue personal research, further research then, or whether to go back to industry or start freelancing. So these were the options that were in front of me, and I had to make a decision about which one I want to choose. So out of all of this, pursuing further research was one of the interests for me. At that point, we moved down to Taunton, which was closer to Bristol. So the interesting point and the reflection point then was, at that point, I never knew that Bristol was turning into or will turn into a robotics hub later. So this was back in 2012, 2013, so 12 years ago, which was still early days of Bristol Robotics Laboratory. So I did try applying for postdoctoral positions there, but wasn't successful. There wasn't enough fund. So eventually went to freelancing. So again, going back, digressing a little bit about what I did during the voluntary roles where I picked up is obviously when you're doing research, you do the journal reviewing, etc., which again gave me my network into different areas, different people, and also origami was one of my interests. So I started running our origami club, after school club, so just to help parents each other to look after the kids. So that is something that I did. Moving on about the freelancing aspect of it, launched a company called Robotics. I was mostly reaching out to people within the network that I built during my PhD, especially in the healthcare, mostly the spin-outs and startup companies, especially my background being in haptic healthcare, haptic robotics healthcare, was reaching out to companies that were making haptic simulators, so helping them understand what the market potential is like, helping them scale the research into commercialization. So that's when I realized that my strength lies actually in understanding what's the perspective of an engineer, how they look at the technology, and interacting with the end user, how does the end user look at the technology and what is the pain point that it is solving. So acting as a bridge between the engineer and the end user is the sweet spot that I realized I'm good at. So that's why I started building my career up on that. So again, the voluntary activity that I did during this period of time is starting a friends group at Taunton Library, where one of the first successful projects from my personal side is we did many campaigns and raised funds so that we could stop some of the satellite libraries from closing down. So that is on the personal front, which gave me a lot of boost and motivation. And it is still a question and a reflection point. What is it? What does it mean to run a business? And I'm sure some of the entrepreneurs here can still relate to that. But that gave me a good skill of what it involves in running a business and what it involves in taking a product which is in the research space into the commercialization. So all through my research career, what I realized is brilliant research is always done in the research labs, but sometimes once that academic or the researcher is engaged in something else, the previous one will just sit on the shelf and gather dust. So nothing happens after that. So that is where I thought a lot of funding is going waste and wanted to keep myself in that position of taking that high TRL research into the commercial market. So that's when there was a change in the personal circumstance. Kids were growing up, they were going to school, can manage themselves for a little while. So why don't I expand my horizon beyond healthcare robotics was the question. So that's when I came across the opportunity of Shadow Robot. If any of you or some of you have heard about it, they make robotic hands or robotic manipulators. They're a London-based company, SME, and I joined them, and surprisingly, I joined in a role in business development, which I never expected I will be coming from a research background. But running my own company gave me the kind of courage to pick up that role. So at that point, Shadow Robot was looking for someone who has got the research or technical background, but who has also got the business acumen in order to take products into new markets. So that is the point where their teleoperation system was in the early days, and they won this Avatar X Prize competition. So that's when I came into and joined Shadow Robot. So Shadow gave me an exposure of exploring how can robots be applied in different market sectors. So I was interacting with big players in pharmaceutical industry. I was speaking with nuclear, like Sellafields, NNLs, and such like here in UK. I was interacting with electronics manufacturing, semiconductors. So you name it, I was talking to people in different industries, and that's my first exposure into robotics and their applications in different worlds. That is, again, today I realized that I was working on a proof of concept project with Professor Yang Gao when she was at Surrey. So that was, again, exposure to how the space projects in robotics were going, and we were also looking at the Mars sample return and how can they be examined in a glove box kind of setting. So those are the ones that I learned. This is the first time I was introduced to EU robotics. So I'll not go too deep into that because I'm quite active in that space and can talk for a long time. So this is a forum at the European level, which is working on robotics. So if anyone is interested in learning more about what are the topic groups, etc., what areas of robotics they are working on, and what does EU robotics do, please come and talk to me during the break or towards the end of the event. Bringing back my experience from running my own company, I started mentoring people who are like starting up or spinning out from universities, started mentoring graduates who launched their company recently, and saw some successes where people got recruited into Apple's bootcamp and few other areas where they were keen on how to navigate that space. What else do we need other than the technical element of designing whatever they were doing? So that is one of the confidence boosters for me, being able to mentor startups and startup owners. So I stayed at Shadow, and I was slowly settling into my comfort zone. There was no push from my side. I was maybe waiting for the pull, like Sigdam was saying. So what do I do? So at that point, I just realized that I was settling in and there is no push. So then I started giving a push to myself and say, I'm doing a lot of learning here, getting exposed to robotics applications in different market sectors. What else can I do there? So can I expand myself into a slightly bigger company where I can go up the career ladder? Or how does it look like going up the career ladder? And how does it look like working in a big company? But I was still passionate about research. Again, stay in the robotics research. So that was my agenda. So in this process, I found an opportunity at Ocado Technology. So I don't know how many of you are aware of Ocado as a retail online supermarket. Any raise of hands anywhere? Yeah. So it's a UK-based global company. They are a fully automated warehouse. Lots of interesting robotic activities happening at Ocado. I joined there as a senior research coordinator. So my job there was sitting in the corporate R&D, and like Sigdam was saying, there is sometimes, depending on the budget, depending on where we are, depending on the cash inflow and outflow of the company, there can be either a big R or a big D. So you have to keep switching between those, and you have to be ready to can projects that you already started, and then keep moving on at a very fast pace. Ocado is a very fast-paced company where there is humongous amounts of learning that you can do. And there are many teams across the world in different development centers brilliant engineers, brilliant roboticists. Interacting with them is like you'll have so much to learn. The more you soak up, the more keeps coming in. But the interesting element that I learned there is with the corporate R&D, like I explained, it can go up and down. And there is also a very big element of IP involved in there because they want to keep close with whatever they are doing. So if you are proposing a collaborative engagement with a university or an external entity or a research organization, they want to make sure that what is the background knowledge that is going in, who owns what is coming out of that project. So it is very difficult to go through those contracts. So having I dealt with a lot of IP lawyers, learned about what their perspective is. So that was something which I didn't expect that would happen in Ocado. So like take it as it comes and learn things and embrace them when you get to learn those. You don't get an opportunity to learn about certain things in different places where you are. So that is again resonates with what Signam was saying as well. So again, had the opportunity to be in the industrial advisory for some of the PSRC projects as well as various other advisory boards as well. And also continuing with my passion for entrepreneurship, I started as a business advisor in Young Enterprise UK, which is a charity organization that develops or encourages entrepreneurial skills in youngsters when they are right in the sixth form or year 12, 13 here. So I started as a business advisor and then moved on to become a chair of the local volunteer team in the Chilterns. Okay, here then came the push, not the push, this time the pull from where I was. So with the network that I built, I came across the next opportunity when I was actually not looking for it, and then I moved on to join ARIA. So ARIA is Advanced Research and Invention Agency, which is a very new agency, less than 2-year-old. So I'll take a few minutes to introduce about ARIA, then talk about what I do at ARIA. So for those of you who haven't come across this is a UK-based research agency that was formed based on a parliamentary act. It is the structure or the motive behind forming this is similar to the DARPA challenge, which you would have heard in US. So fund something which looks like at the edge of possible for now, and make sure that breakthrough research that is funded also translates into the community and be beneficial to the community. So that is the motive of ARIA. Where you could be a scientist at a university or a research organization, or you could even be a scientist working in your own garage. Anyone is eligible to apply. So how does it work in which areas that ARIA is funding at the moment? So it is slightly different to the other funding routes. So at the moment, there are some dynamic leaders called program directors who came to ARIA, and they were able to sell their idea out of a big pool of 800 such people who came in and tried to pitch their idea to ARIA. 7 of them were successful. And those are the ones who are working as program directors, trying to lead their vision to create those breakthroughs in the area that they believe can unlock some challenges and be beneficial to the society. So you can see some of them here. Like mathematics for safe AI, programmable plants. I'm in particular involved in smart robot bodies, which is led by Jenny Reed, as she's the program director. I'll talk a little bit about smart robot bodies later. But so these are further. So out of, you saw 4 of them: nature computes better, future-proofing, our climate, and scoping our planet. If you're interested in learning about any other program areas, please go have a look on ARIA's website. There are live funding calls open as well, so you can have a look about that. So how it works in practice about how ARIA funds. So this is something a lot of people have been asking me all throughout here as well as outside as well. So the program directors define an opportunity space, and the names of the opportunity spaces you have seen already. Then the PDs launch and manage these programs using, they can fund some projects. The projects could be like collaborative projects which universities and large or small or medium organizations can come together as teams and apply, or they can apply separately. And there are opportunity seeds which are somewhat like out there idea which may not be fitting into any other funding avenues that is out there, looks like a highly risky proposition. So those are the ones that can be funded as well. All that it requires is for the people to be able to convince, saying this is something that is going to unblock a challenge which is stopping from something progressing at the moment. So that is how the funding happens. So what do I do in the Smart Robot Bodies program space is I joined as a technical specialist in robotics. My job is to bring in the domain knowledge, bring in the network and connections, as well as once all these projects and seed projects are filtered and selected, setting up those projects, running those projects, making sure they are going in the right direction, meeting all the milestones. Those are the things that I need to be looking into. Regarding the voluntary opportunities, I'm open. Other than the ones that I'm currently doing, I'm open for other positions. And I'm still at the beginning, just 2 weeks having joined ARIA, so still don't have any points of reflection. Open for anyone to come back to me and ask in a year or 2 years' time. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Thanks for listening. And
Thank you very much. Do you have any question at all? Yes, of course.
Thanks very much. You mentioned the push and pull of moving jobs. Do you think you've done enough pushing, or compared to being pulled? What are your thoughts on that?
So it sometimes depends on how you feel about, in every leg of your journey, there is an element of what excites you to go to work and do something that you want to do. So when it becomes more of a routine, that's when you need to question yourself as to whether I'm still learning anything here. Is it something exciting for me to get up in the morning and go? If that is still happening, I would say it's fine to be where you are. But once you realize there is no new learning or nothing progressing from where you are, that's when you need to look for either push yourself or wait for any pull to come to you.
Yeah. No, great. Thank you very much.
Any further question? Yeah. So if I ask you the same question, do you have any regrets?
Oh, regrets. Okay. I have a regret of regretting at one point. I shouldn't have, but I regretted. So, like I was saying, I took a break with 2 kids. I was at home. I was enjoying, but at the same time, when I used to see my friends who were like keeping on moving in the career or joining research and progressing, I used to worry, will I be ever able to get back to anything, do something useful, or will I be staying home all the time and forgetting about even how to operate a computer, leave alone robot. So, but if you're in certain phases of life where you have to calm down and enjoy where you are, enjoy that moment. Don't worry about what happens next. When you get to that point, eventually you'll again push yourself and come up to speed with what is needed for that. So yeah, that is the regret about regretting.
And so, if you compare yourself with your male counterpart, so do you think female colleagues or female researchers are in a disadvantaged position? Or what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, in the technology area, I think there is an awareness that there are not enough representatives, not just female, but from other areas as well. Like there is not enough diversity or from ethnic minorities and other backgrounds itself. While there is an awareness, there is a positive discrimination in some cases where even if the work is not up to the mark, you're given an opportunity because you need to be encouraged. I come from a generation in India where the girls were given opportunity to enter into universities because a lot of the girls were stopped from going to universities and were married off in the generation before me. So they wanted to encourage girls to pick up university studies. So that pushed that generation, although there was a parity between sometimes during the entry point, there was a parity in the quality, like there were boys who were performing much better than the girls. They caught up. So I used to feel like, oh, are we in a place where we are not as talented as them, but came there because of some form of reservation or something? But if you're pushing yourself, you'll always reach that point. That opportunity needs to be given as an unfair advantage to begin with. That will jump up and the quality improves as we move on. Regrets in terms of industry and positions. I haven't faced things myself, but although there is always complaints about in the industry, especially in big organizations, like there is no flexibility, especially when women are needed to be in the caregiving roles. Sometimes if there is an opportunity to encourage that in wherever you are, and if you're in a position, please encourage and